lots of AI LLM traffic picking up, people using ChatGPT and Perplexity and some of these other tools.
Start looking at Bing optimization because the ChatGPT's feeds just come in from Bing.
Doubling down on this UGC, even reviews, that type of content is going to be so valuable.
Welcome to the Performance SEO Unpacked podcast, where leading experts reveal practical solutions for scaling enterprise and e-commerce growth. Deep dive into cutting-edge AI SEO strategies.
Hello everybody and welcome back to Performance SEO Unpacked. Today I have Sam with me. Sam is a seasoned SEO director with over 20 years of experience working on small and large websites. He's currently the director of SEO at Slack. Previously, he was the global head of SEO at Amazon Business. He's passionate about the future of SEO with AI and LLM optimization taking hold. So continuing my conversation with Sam, basis what we spoke earlier.
Yeah. Thank you, Ruchi. Nice to be here.
Sam, can you start by explaining why is it so important for SEO to think beyond just optimizing for Google these days?
Yeah, so I like the modifier these days because I actually, have been kind of harping on this topic for a while before, the recent updates with Google, which we'll get into. But, I think that it's been worthwhile for SEOs to look beyond Google for a long time, looking at platforms like Amazon for optimizations, like Netflix has an SEO element to it. So anywhere, and even back before Google, we had the phone book where people were doing optimizations for yellow pages, for AAA, whatever. So I think it's important to keep, like, if this is your fundamental framework for being an SEO, like understanding that things change quickly sometimes, and that wherever your customers are, like where they're searching from, is going to be where you need to be as an optimizer, as a marketer, essentially. And so today, I think it's particularly salient because we see lots of AI LLM traffic picking up, people using ChatGPT and Perplexity and some of these other tools. So I guess the pie is being eaten from multiple points at this juncture in optimizations. So it's very important for us to be aware of like what we consider SEO.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with this. And you brought up, things from back in early 1980s, I guess, with the triple A's, and it's always been evolving ever since. What should SEOs have in place, in your opinion, as a strong technical foundation before focusing on AI and LLM optimization? That's the new thing, but is it open for everybody to just get started on this, or do you think there has to be some basic foundation that everybody must focus on before they jump on the new wagon?
Yeah, so if you own, like, let's say you're a business owner or you own a website and you're saying, wow, this is the cutting edge, of SEO, we need to be on Perplexity and determine how we show up there. I think it's more important for you to lay the framework of make sure your website is still, in good working order. So make sure you have good content on your website, make sure the technical SEO aspects of your site are performing well. So it's being able to be crawled, being indexed. And then from there, you can kind of consider, like, once you have a good foundation for your website, then you can kind of consider more about, what the LLMs and AI are finding on your website. So Google's still the king. Google search is still the king of search at this point for most people. And I think that it would be negligent to not optimize for Google first.
Do you think it's equally important for people to, also start looking at Bing optimization because, the ChatGPT's feeds just come in from Bing?
No, I think so. I think used to say like you optimize for Google, by proxy you're optimizing for Bing, but I think that is actually changing. So I think it's a good point where Bing is becoming, well, for us at Slack, not to give too much away, but Bing is a growing search channel for us, and we're seeing positive trends from Bing traffic, most likely due to its investment in ChatGPT and OpenAI. But I think it's worthwhile for sure to consider Bing more closely maybe than you have in the past if you're an SEO.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So last when we were speaking, you mentioned the importance of using schema markups to provide more information to AI crawlers. Can you share some insights on how you've leveraged schema markups efficiently?
Well, yeah, I think so. That's true. I do think having good schema markup in place, any sort of micro formatting is important for AI crawlers in Google. I think one of the things that we're seeing too at Slack is Google's taking a lot of AI overviews, and we want to indicate kind of to Google and to those crawlers what we think is appropriate for the AI overviews and whatever they're surfacing in Perplexity or ChatGPT. I'm not going to, I don't mean, I'm not a paid shill here, but I've used Schema app, and I think that's pretty compelling app for schema markup. I think we're seeing some interesting results from how crawlers are finding the structured data on our site. Other than that, I think, finding the right, I think there's a I think SEOs in the past have maybe in some cases overused structured data or underused, right? There's never like it was never a middle ground of like appropriate usage of schema. It was either all or none. And I think that yeah, finding the right content to mark up and indicate these appropriate things to crawlers is pretty important. I think that's just one aspect of AI LLM optimization that I'm leaning into.
Yeah, is there a specific schema markup that you are your really favorite ones, and you think that we should must include in as a tip to the SEOs?
I'm not going to give you the code, but I will tell you anything UGC. So it could be review schema, anything like where user generated content is the basis of that. That it to me is gold. And to AI LLMs, I think this is something that they're weighing a lot, putting a lot of weight behind is UGC. So forum,
Mm.
if you can have forum markup and anything user generated content, that's definitely something you want to indicate to these crawlers because look at how much if you look at how much Google's invested into Reddit, it's not surprising that UGC and customer sentiment is something that is top of mind for them.
Yeah, no, that's great information, and you did share, anything that's related to UGC, everybody must look at and optimize for it.
Yeah.
But coming to a point, how do you balance optimizing for Google versus optimizing for AI powered search? Are they mutually exclusive, or can strategies complement each other?
I think they're complementary, at least at this point. It may find a point in the future where things change, but I think they're very complementary in the way that you need offsite optimization, like Reddit content, and having
Mm.
customer and out like customer sentiment out there with UGC, and then also like having the structured data, right? That's even before AI LLMs were around. That was important to have. So I think that very much complementary. I think if anything, you probably couldn't go too overboard with the AI LLM optimizations based on the constraints for that, right? Like, so there's only so much content you can produce from UGC content if it's legitimate UGC content, right? So I think leaning heavier into the AI LLM optimizations will pay dividends in the future, but also could complement your existing SEO strategy for Google.
Yeah, yeah, and you've mentioned Reddit and YouTube. Can you share some of your experiences of using platforms like Reddit and YouTube to build authority and credibility?
Much more difficult to manipulate. It's more of, I think that I'm not going to share my Reddit experiences. But I will
Okay.
say with YouTube's the second largest search engine. There's tons of traffic coming to YouTube. And I think one of the things is with these types of platforms are like attribution is a big issue for especially YouTube. So bigger companies tend to be more hesitant because they can't quantify the ROI from it, at least not directly. But I will say, yeah, like success on YouTube to me looks like top of funnel engagement and getting your brand into conversations where it it may not be elsewhere. And I think to me, having like a face to the brand is important too, right? I don't think having like a no face SEO channel or a YouTube channel is ideal. I think it's good to have someone that people can relate to or identify with your brand. And I've seen good results with that. I think Slack has some YouTube SEO involvement, but it would be something I would love to push more for in 2025, because these are things I think, again, like people are having conversations on Reddit and YouTube about Slack, and we're not actually like engaging in those conversations as a company. And I think it would be great for us to show up there.
And it's very interesting where you're mentioning that for even for SEO success, it's great to have a ambassador associated, a digital ambassador associated for success, and then you're also at the same time broadening the scope of SEO, by even going to places like Reddit and communicating with the actual user and trying to bring in the right audience to the website in order to generate traffic. That's a very interesting angle
Mhm.
that you just brought in. And you also touched upon a topic that needs full episode to itself, which is ROI from all these, referral traffics and the redirects, and how to measure, what's SEO success, what's social media.
Mhm.
That's great. But and coming to the measuring aspect itself, just beyond traditional Google rankings, what other metrics are you tracking to measure the impact of your AI search optimization efforts?
Okay, so this is still like very difficult to do on a one-to-one basis. At least not as clear. The data is not as clear as it is from maybe like a GA4 or search. There's no search console for Perplexity yet, so I anticipate in the future, like ChatGPT will have some type of analytics or data. Maybe they start doing ads to it. That's another conversation too. Sorry. But I think for me, like what we're doing now is we're looking at referral traffic from Perplexity, from ChatGPT, and we're kind of modeling out an idea of if we're getting X amount of click throughs or referrals to our site from these, we have to imagine that maybe it's 1% of these people are actually clicking through to Slack's
Mm.
website, for instance. And we know, let's say there's 1,000 clicks per month, just hypothetical. I'm not going to give in any any details here, but let's say 1,000 clicks per month. If that's 1% click through rate, we're looking at about 100,000 monthly search volume on these channels, right? So it's not an insignificant amount of traffic, and we're watching it grow week by week. It's growing rapidly as far as a referral channel. So we're trying to do our best to understand what the impact is on our SEO traffic, because presumably these people, this 100,000 MSV was searching on Google or Bing, and now they're on Perplexity or ChatGPT. So we're also trying to model this alongside the impact of AI overviews. So there's a lot of noise and it's tough to find the signal, but I think this is the best from what I can tell. This is the best way for now for us to understand this traffic.
Yeah, we already, as marketers, were struggling to get the attributes right with all, the cookieless world. And now, welcome to the AI world where we do not understand
Yeah.
what's contributing to what. I myself, was the other day, I had never tried it. And I was speaking to somebody, and they introduced me to using the UTMs to track the traffic coming in from chat GPTs and the perplexities. And I was like, oh, this just solves so much for
Mhm.
me that it's a lot more easier to track what's coming in from, what location. But
Yeah.
it's so much more complicated to attribute the success over here.
Yeah.
So
And also you have to consider like how many of those people are just coming in directly too, right? Like some
yeah.
percentage of those people probably don't click a referral link. They just come directly to the site. And it's also brand visibility, right? So share of voice, those types of metrics, they're much more difficult to attribute.
Yeah. So, basis your experience, in the past, and I don't want you to get into a lot of specifics. I understand, there's, guidelines around it. But is there, a case study or a scenario where, you would want to share on an AI experiment with the listeners on what you did, how did you achieve, and what was the need of that experiment, maybe at a top level.
Yeah, I can give you some higher level idea of what I've done in the past. I think what I've so I actually try to avoid too much AI intervention in content.
Hmm.
I think it's maybe detectable, and if it isn't now, it may be in the future. So we don't automate AI content or anything like that. I know some people are all about it, but for me, it's a lot of
And
risk.
the world's going crazy with
Yeah,
it.
yeah, and I think that you can go down that rabbit hole, and I think that kind of sets you up for potential losses in the future. So what I've done, I really like using AI for conversion rate optimization at scale. What that
Mm.
looks like to me is maybe pulling in all of your meta tags on let's say your blog, and having AI rewrite those meta tags to be higher converting but maintaining the keywords that are existing in them, right? So rewrite these to be more of a higher converting title tag or meta tag. It could be even your H1s you might want to consider rewriting. And you can kind of spit that out into a list. Most people have a lot of, like bigger companies have a lot of blog posts, 1,000+ blog posts.
Yeah.
And you can batch test to those too. So you can say, let's see if we re-optimize these on a 6-week basis. Let's see what kind of improvements we can make over time to these blog posts, which in the past you would have had maybe an agency go through and touch up one by one, human intervention. You can iterate on these things really quickly and get lots of learnings. And that's something that's been
Yeah.
very, very fun and interesting for me to do.
And that's a very interesting angle. Typically you started by content because that's where the world is going. It's so much easy to get AI to do your keyword research or to find out, a little bit of competitive data. But using it for CRO and tracking, I think, recording and improving on the previous data is so critical in making this a success. But that's an awesome angle to start using AI for,
Thanks.
the CRO. So you've been using it for a while and you've seen it progressing.
Yeah, the thing is, at Amazon, we call this a two-way door. Anything where you can just go forward and then come right back through is an okay. You have full autonomy to do that. And so this is very much that, right? You have the baseline, all the title tags existing. If the experiment is
Yeah.
bad, you can go back and put in the what was there before. So that to
Yeah.
a very minimized amount of harm to the site. But yes, like ultimately we've iterated enough to where we see improvements in rankings, traffic, conversions. So blog posts typically don't convert at a huge rate, but the ones that do, it's interesting.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great angle. I guess, the listeners are going to enjoy using AI for CRO optimization, something not
Yeah.
normal. Normally a lot of people do. Yeah. Sam, so as we wrap up this discussion, on the rise of AI and search, what's your key piece of advice for SEOs who are looking for future proofing their strategies?
Double down on UGC. I think this UGC content is the new link building. It's the new content creation of the blog. I've looked at dozens of websites, and blog traffic is dropping while their forum traffic is increasing, and it's not an anomaly. I think that it's very much the case, and it makes total sense if you're Google, if you're ChatGPT or Perplexity, and you can pour through huge amounts of data. Why trust a biased blog, right? every
Yeah.
every company has a bias they're positioning themselves through on their blog. So don't trust that. Trust what you hear from conversations by real people on other platforms, even your own, right? So I think doubling down on this UGC, even reviews, that type of content is going to be so valuable. And also it's very difficult, it'll be very difficult to catch up once a competitor has invested a lot into their UGC. You as a person trying to catch up will be very hard for you to catch up on that UGC angle. So you can get ahead of it
Yeah.
early on. It's going to pay dividends, and it'll position you more strongly for the future. I look at a company like Amazon,
That is
like Amazon's this way.
No, that is some serious advice that you've given, and I'm really glad, and I hope people who are listening are able to get onto this, understand it, and deploy it in their strategies. Because you're right, once the competition starts picking up on the UGC angle, it's not as easy as bringing making hundreds and thousands of blogs overnight and getting them, hoping that they start ranking and giving us the traffic. But this is a completely different strategy and a different approach on on doing SEO. Well, this is such a great conversation, Sam. I hope everybody enjoys listening, and there are some great takeaways that you've given us in this conversation. While we were speaking, there is so much more with your depth of experience with Amazon and Slacks and some of the larger enterprises. I would love to do another episode with you on talking about, how to manage and deal with the larger website SEOs, where the pages are just
Yeah.
endless. So something to look forward to, and we'll be recording
Yeah.
that
Happy to
soon.
do it. Thanks, Ruchi.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Bye bye.